Heroes Like Us is a series intended at sharing comic book characters from various backgrounds and identities. We won't always get everything right, so feel free to make amendments and corrections in the comments. They're always appreciated. What's not appreciated, however, is any form of hate speech or intolerance, so comments of that nature will be immediately deleted and those users blocked from this channel. This is a place of education and celebration. Welcome to I'm Your Target Demographic, and welcome to Heroes Like Us, our series where we look at certain identities and then give you a sampling of heroes that have that identity. And today we are talking about African. Now, I've already done a African American video, and I will be doing probably 4 or 5 more of those, but these are specifically heroes that are tied to Africa, or directly we know what country they're from in Africa. So it's a subset that they're not necessarily African Americans. Another preface before we start. Now, there are a handful of heroes that identify as Egyptian. I'm not going to include them in this video because there's enough of them to do an Egyptian video. So in the pipeline for the future, I will be doing all of the heroes that are Egyptian. So let's dive in to our African heroes. We're gonna start with probably one of the most prominent, and that is Storm, Aurora Monroe. Storm is Marvel Comics. She is a mutant. Her mother is Kenyan. She was born in Manhattan, but then she was raised in Cairo. And it was in Cairo that both of her parents were killed, and it left her an orphan in the streets. And it's from this incident that she gets claustrophobia, which is probably her biggest weakness. Now, Storm is a mutant, and her ability is to control the weather, but to say it as simply as that is to underestimate what she's capable of, because really, the weather could mean all sorts of things. So it could mean tornadoes and ice and lightning, but it also means things like solar winds and changing the electromagnetic currents. Like, it could mean potentially global catastrophe. Now, when she was young and in Cairo and an orphan, she had to learn how to kind of pickpocket and steal, and so she has a lot of street smarts that way. She eventually made her way back to Kenya, where she was raised and where she learned how to use these mutant powers of hers. Now, eventually she crossed paths with another person on this list, and that is the Black Panther. So she falls in love with and marries T'Challa, who is the king of Wakanda, which is a fictional African country. So for a while, the two of them are immensely powerful, and Professor Xavier puts a lot of pressure on Storm during this time to be an ambassador for mutant kind, saying that this marriage potentially makes her one of the most politically powerful mutants in the world. And so there's pressure for this relationship to work, but unfortunately it doesn't, as things kind of fall apart during the Avengers versus X-Men line, where T'Challa has to basically say that the X-Men are his enemies, and Storm has to pick the X-Men. And so basically it kind of dissolves their relationship. So let's talk about T'Challa. So the Black Panther. The Black Panther is a title that is passed down. And so T'Challa is kind of the most recent Black Panther. And he is the prince. Well, he starts out as the prince, and now he's the king of Wakanda. And Wakanda is known for kind of one thing, and that is a mineral called vibranium, which is what Captain America's shield is made out of, things like that. It is basically unbreakable because any metal or anything that hits it, the vibrations are reverberated back to it. So it is not indestructible, but it kind of absorbs that energy. And because there's so much of it in Wakanda, and Wakanda is really the only place to get it, it makes T'Challa the richest man, not only in Marvel Comics, not only in comic books, but in all of fiction. So Time Magazine actually did a piece about the wealth of superheroes, and they had characters like Iron Man and Batman, and T'Challa comes in at an approximated worth of $90 trillion. However, through a storyline recently with Doctor Doom, where T'Challa had to basically make all of the vibranium inert, a lot of that wealth is gone. So we're not quite sure where his current standing is, but he's not as rich as he used to be. But because of all this vibranium and the ability to weaponize it, Wakanda is incredibly safe and protected and well armed, and very few people try to take it over. In terms of what he can do, he's basically a human being. So there's nothing really supernatural about him, except the fact that whoever is the Black Panther gets blessed with this knowledge of basically the Panther goddess. That they're kind of faster, stronger, they're kind of, everything's amped up a little bit. In addition to, they have the knowledge of all of the past Black Panthers that they can tap into. They also have all the weaponry of Wakanda. So they have things like vibranium lacing through their armor, so they're basically kind of indestructible almost. He also has these anti-metal claws, which can melt metal at a kind of molecular level. So even for characters like Wolverine, his adamantium claws are nothing against what Black Panther could do. He also is incredibly smart. He's mastered a lot of different martial arts. Black Panther is probably one of the most underrated Marvel Comics heroes, and it's cool to see him now that he has a movie coming up. More people in the mainstream are starting to pay attention to him. So now let's talk about someone that's a little less well known, and this is someone from Wildstorm Comics. Not one that we talk about a lot, but it is a heroine named Flint. And Flint is basically a meta-human that her skin is unbreakable, that it's basically almost like a rock substance. And so you'll see she can deflect bullets, she's incredibly strong. You'll see that she gets kind of this scarring as damage is dealt to her, that her skin is literally almost like a rock. While she is indestructible, she does still feel pain. So it's this interesting thing where her pain tolerance goes up because she feels so much pain, but it doesn't actually hurt her. In terms of where she's from, Flint is born and raised in Kenya, but she was recruited by basically this fictional version of the United Nations to serve on a group called Stormwatch, which is basically like a Black Ops meta-human group that deals with threats that normal people can't. Lastly, for this list, we're going to talk about another heroine by the name of Vixen. And this is DC Comics. She is from a fictional country called Zambesi. I believe that's how you pronounce it, Zambesi. She has a totem that allows her to tap into the energy of animals. So if she wants to run like a gazelle, this totem allows her to kind of summon that energy and do that. If she wants to be strong like an ape, if she wants to be cunning like a lion, or like whatever trait she wants, she can tap into and make a reality. Now this sounds great, but the weakness is as she taps into an animal and she stays in that mindset for longer, she starts to lose control and kind of veer towards that animalistic nature. So sometimes you'll see negative traits like rage or timidness. You'll see things come out the longer she's focusing that power. So she needs to be aware of coming back to reality, often to keep her humanity. Vixen has used these powers on teams like the Birds of Prey and the Justice League. So those are the only heroes I'm going to talk about today. Are there other characters from Africa that we missed? We'll likely do a part 2, so let me know your favorite characters we didn't touch on. Again, we're doing African American in other videos, and so there may be characters that you want to talk about that will show up there. But are there other characters tied to Africa, from Africa, with a determined nationality that we can talk about? Let me know, and I would love to. So thanks for watching. Make sure you check out the other Heroes Like Us videos, and we'll see you next time.